Welcome back to the Ghost Bunny Podcast. I'm your host, Bridget Marquardt, with a brand new episode for you guys. My guest today is Karen Dahlman. Karen Dahlman is an author, paranormal researcher, psychotherapist, and internationally recognized spirit communicator. She serves as an officer and director of the Talking Board Historical Society and has devoted more than 5 decades to the direct exploration of consciousness, non-physical intelligence, and human awareness. Born with the innate abilities of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, Karen has practiced consciousness channeling since childhood and has worked with the Ouija board as a tool for channeling and consciousness research since 1973. Her extensive firsthand experience, documentation, and public education have made her one of the world's most respected contemporary Ouija practitioners. Karen presents at conferences and events worldwide, teaching practical and ethical methods for developing extrasensory perception, channeling responsibility, and engaging the higher self and sentient beings beyond ordinary perception. Her work emphasizes discernment, spiritual maturity, and consciousness expansion rather than fear-based narratives. She regularly appears on radio, television, film, and podcasts. Karen holds a master's degree in art psychotherapy and is trained in hypnosis, past life regression, and counseling. Her mission is expanding the boundaries of consciousness and assisting humanity in awakening to its greatest potential. And I'm so excited to chat with Karen today. Karen, thank you so much for doing the show today.
Hey, Bridget, glad to be with you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So I just have to tell you right off the bat, we have roofers here today. They were supposed to be done already and they're not. They're on the other side of the house, but it is so loud. So if you guys hear rapping and tapping and weird noises, it's not the spirits, although we wish it was.
It could be. You never know. Let's see what happens.
It could be. Let's try. Okay. First thing I wanted to ask you, because I hear it said both ways, and I thought I knew how to say it, but I find myself saying it both ways depending on who I'm talking to. Is it Ouija or Ouija?
Great question. Okay, so we know how it's pronounced because back in the day, they used to package the board in the box with a planchette in it, and they put the phonetic spelling of the word, and it's really pronounced Ouija. However, since the vernacular over the time has kind of changed and people, pop times are calling it Ouija, it's acceptable. But you'll hear me mostly say Ouija because I try to be true to the history.
Definitely. Okay, so either way is acceptable, though.
Absolutely. Ouija, tomato.
Okay. And then in your bio, you mention, and I say it, that you are an officer and director of the Talking Board Historical Society. And I'm actually going to have John on, and I know that he is also part of it. He's going to talk to me all about the Historical Society, but I just feel like people will be so curious. So in case this episode happens first, will you just give people a brief description of what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking about our group. It was a group that was loosely formed by, I would call them frenemies, and John will probably go more into that. They were all collectors in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and they were kind of competing against each other to get these fantastic boards. And so they got together and they decided, well, let's just help each other get some good boards. And they're the ones that are also touted for putting in the Elijah Bond stone in a cemetery that's very famous. You'll find it online. Look up Elijah Bond Ouija board stone, gravestone. And then they decided to start a group that really focused on the history, the facts, everything about the people behind it, the women, the men who created this device, because it is from the United States. And they created a group called the Talking Board Historical Society in 2013. And I've been with the group since 2017. And my contribution is that I've been using the board for now going into 5 decades of historical use of the board, actually getting messages from spirits.
Karen, that seems impossible. Were you doing it the day you were born?
Oh, bless your heart. I started in utero. Just kidding.
I think so.
Yeah, well, you're nice. I started in 73. I was 8 years old when I got my first Ouija board from Santa Claus, no less. And I've been doing it ever since. It's been a great odyssey. And behind me, you can see it. It's the board that's under the light. That's my original board from 1973 that Santa Claus gave to me. And I also have the original planchette right here. It has the original brass tack. They quit making them with those because kids would take them out. They come right out and swallow them. But this is my original planchette. So I love it. I still use it to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Um, so we're gonna get all into the Ouija board, but I wanted to ask you something else that popped out in your bio that I have been wanting to do for so long now, and I just am not sure. I think well, I'll tell you. There's a couple of reasons why I haven't done it yet, but tell me about past life regression.
Oh, yeah. So past life regression is a fabulous tool. I learned to use it very therapeutically in my private practice. I underwent past life therapy myself out of curiosity, I thought. But then I found out as I was having it done, I was really starting to look at, past life residue that I was still holding in my system. And it's kind of like you can move through different lives. The concept is here that you move through different lives and still carry some of the residual energy. And so the past life therapy is used to help you break that up, but also to, when you explore it and open it up, to heal it. So I learned to use that therapeutically, use it in my practice for those reasons. And it is very exciting to find out some of these past lives, but it's more than that. You start realizing, gosh, I'm a soul that continues through time after time after time. I never get destroyed. And in fact, Bridget, I had people that came to my sessions and did past life with me who really went into future lives. So it's not just past life. We usually call it, regression work. You follow the energy back, and the therapist is trained to do this work with hypnosis. And you may go into utero, you may go into in between lives, you may go into future lives. You just follow the energy around because the idea is that all time is happening right now, which is a hard concept for us to wrap our brains around.
Yeah.
But all time is here and now. That's why you can get into future lives, past lives, in between lives, and feel it all right now. And I know our talk today is going to get more into consciousness, which is the vessel that allows us to do this, to make these connections. So do it. Now, how come you don't
Uh,
want to do it or you've been hesitant?
okay. Well, first of all, I have some questions for you.
Ooh.
Is a past life regression? Is it like one session, or is this like a thing that you have to do multiple times?
You can go to somebody and just do a curiosity thing where you get a regression to see where you go. But if you really want to gain the insight from it, it's multiple sessions. It's multiple. I've had people that have come like 10 times for them to work through, because I was a clinical therapist working through issues, whether it's depression, grief, and we would use this tool is one of the tools I use to help people heal. So then it became session oriented to helping break through different levels. And when I used it myself, it was the same thing when I used it personally, when I went to a therapist, psychotherapist, and learned to do it. So you could do it both ways. Curiosity, 1 or 2 sessions. You really want to you find out you've got some things you want to work on, then it'll be multiple sessions.
Okay. I think for me, the reason why I haven't done it yet and the reason I'm nervous about it is one, I feel like you have to find somebody that you really trust and
Hmm.
really like. Because I feel like it could be very, I don't know, like be very vulnerable, very, I don't know. I just feel like you really have to like know the person sort of and feel comfortable with the person. So just picking somebody blindly that I find on Google who does past life regression doesn't feel right to me about doing it that way.
I concur. And I found my person through people that I've gone to this person. This is back in the 90s when I did it and became a therapist to use past life therapy. I agree with you. I think you have to be really careful who you pick for any kind of therapeutic work or any kind of deep dive, because when you start doing past lives, whether you're doing it for a one off because you're curious or therapeutically, you will get emotional. And you do want to be in a place where you trust people. You will also be under a form of hypnosis, which is going into a deeper state of awareness. Doesn't mean you're going to bark like a dog. It's not stage hypnotics, but it does mean that you will be getting into some things that that if the person is not trained to help you through those things, it could be difficult. So I went to a psychologist. She has got a PhD, and she trained under Dr. Brian Weiss. Dr. Brian Weiss is one of the
Yes.
groundbreaker guys with this work. And so she learned his techniques, and that's who I work with. And I picked her because of those reasons and because she came highly recommended. So I would look around and see who somebody recommends to you, and then look them up. Because I personally wanted somebody that was a clinician. They already were able to deal with clinical issues in psychology. I thought that was really important for me. And I don't regret it.
Yeah.
I still have every single one of my sessions on cassette tapes, but I still have them.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So I have three things from that you just said. First of all, Dr. Brian Weiss, he wrote a book called Many Lives, Many Matters that I was like
Mhm.
so into. Like that book was so fascinating to me. And then secondly, you talk about hypnosis, and that's my other reservation for the past life regression is that I know it's a form of hypnosis, and I don't know if I can be hypnotized. Can everybody be hypnotized? Because I feel like when I was a kid, in fact, when I was going through to a psychiatrist because of I was seeing ghosts and my parents thought something was wrong with me, she hypnotized me. But when I was hypnotized, I feel like I was just playing along with her.
Okay. Yeah.
And that I wasn't really under. I was just kind of like making things up that I thought she wanted me to do and say and hear.
Well, let me ask you this. So I'll answer that question, but did you feel like you got anywhere with when you went there? Did you get any kind of help with it, with her tools?
From talking to her, no. I mean, she did give me one really good piece of advice that did end up making the scary part of all of this go away. She told me that I should go to my grandfather's grave and ask him to make it stop. And even if it wasn't coming from him, because it was appearing in his image, sort of, that he might be able to do something from the other side. And I did that, and it did eventually stop after that. So I think that was a good piece but that wasn't necessarily tool she was doing therapy wise.
Okay, it was just more of the conversation. Well, here's the thing about hypnosis. So can everybody be hypnotized? Most part, I would say 90% can be. There are some people that just won't follow the suggestion, which is fine. Doesn't mean they're bad, they're good. Just means that's their technique. Now, have you ever driven your car and you went from point A to Z and you forgot, did I even stop at that red light? Did I go through that light? Did I stop at that stop sign? Did you?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, that's hypnosis. That's a form of hypnosis. So, but you still did it. You're still aware of yourself. I've done it too. I would say anybody watching shows probably gonna say, yeah, I've done that all the time. I do it all the time. But the reality is that's a form of self-hypnosis. So you go under with therapists. You don't go under where you don't remember what you're saying. But what you'll do is you'll go under and start recalling emotions. And I remember in the beginning going, okay, yeah, this is silly. Am I making this up? And questioning myself, just like I did in the beginning when I started channeling, even on the Ouija board. Oh, come on, this is not real. Is it really moving? No, he's pushing it. She's pushing it. Oh, maybe I am. Maybe my subconscious is pushing it. It's learning to let go enough to trust the story that unfolds in hypnosis, that you're still going to be aware of what you're saying. But then it gets to a point where you go into deeper levels where you go, wow. You listen to yourself and you go, I don't remember saying that. Holy cow. Or you might get some facts or information like I do on the Ouija board. Like, there's no way I would have known that. So that's how it is. It always feels like when you work in these dimensions, I'm going to call them different levels of consciousness, that you don't always recognize you're in a different level of consciousness. You stepped into them automatically as a child, as I did too, seeing ghosts and spirits and beings all around me, as you did too. And my family thought I was crazier than hell. They said, you can't go to school doing this because nobody's going to be your friend. I'm like, well, I don't want that. So I had to send all my friends, my spirit friends away, and they never went away. But, like your grandfather didn't go away. But they have to kind of recede in the background because they're there to help you. And so you did that, but you never let go of it. But you were able to go in these other levels of consciousness and see them where others couldn't because you were doing a form of hypnosis. You were shifting your awareness, your frequency, almost like a self-meditation. So hypnosis is a very gentle thing to use. And I use self-hypnosis all the time when I'm trying to go to sleep at night and I can't quite get back to sleep or even get into sleep. And I'll use a form of that. So it's a very healthy thing. And what I find when people do hypnosis, in terms of regression work, you start learning to be able to use it on yourself, to be calm, to quickly step into a state of awareness that allows you to traverse the different dimensions. Like I channel, I do spiritual readings for clients. It allows me to get into those spaces quickly so I can access that other dimension, access that other level of consciousness I'm trying to reach. So it's all so connected. And that's why you read in my bio, it's everything I did creatively, whether it was art therapy, psychotherapy, hypnosis, regression work, the stuff I do now, channeling, spirit communication, the Ouija board, it's allowed me to access those dimensions that I was freely able to access as a young child, as you were too, Bridget, and still are.
Okay, one more thing about the past life regression, and then we'll move on from this, but I just want to tell you a story. So my husband was gifted, this was a long time ago, probably 20 years ago, or maybe even a little bit more. He was gifted a free past life regression therapy session. And he was kind of like a 20-something year old at that time, like, I'm not really into this, but it was like an expensive like gift. And the person who gave it to him was like, you have to do this. It's like life changing, blah, blah. And he went and he did it with some woman in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And she hypnotized him, and he went back to two past lives. And he actually was like in, I think he was in the Korean War. And he was killed in the Korean War with a bayonet, and he was able to write a letter with his left hand. He's right-handed. Write a letter that he wrote to his parents back then. And this was all taped. And then there was another life too that had like a crazy story too. And he cannot find the cassette tape. It was one of those little mini cassette tapes.
Yep.
And she asked if she could keep the letter and a copy of the session too, because she was going to write a book and she really wanted to use his story in the book. And he said, yeah, sure, whatever. And then 20 years later, he's telling me about this. And I'm like, wait, no, I need to see the letter. I need to hear the tape. I want to know who this person is. I need her on my podcast.
I want to know too.
Like, who is this? And we cannot figure it out, like where the tape is or who she was.
Oh my God. What a wonderful story, but I'm sad to hear that he doesn't have a copy of that. And back then, I know 20 years ago, we didn't have the ability just to copy things so quickly, or even like a flatbed scanner or something. Dang it. But that's a great story. That's the stuff that happens when you start doing hypnosis. You can all of a sudden remember a different language, or you can do things with a different hand, like you said. And you might have a scar on your body that was caused from a previous life, like a birthmark.
Well, that's another thing I was going to ask you. If somebody has like a chronic pain, like I've had for decades, like this pain in my shoulder blade, honestly, it's probably from carrying my heavy backpacks all the time on like one shoulder because I had to be cool and not wear it on both sides or whatever.
We all did.
But is it possible that like a pain like that, like a reoccurring pain that you have with no real explanation or no reason that you can think of that maybe caused it, could have been caused from a previous life, like being stabbed there or something?
Absolutely. In fact, the psychologist I trained with, she was starting to get in the 1990s, she was getting a lot of patients that were coming to her, or whether patients, clients, they were coming to her for therapy. They were coming to her and they all had some kind of weird chemical reaction. Like they had a take certain kind of medicine or to relieve themselves. I mean, they were getting like rashes, some weird stuff. And she started regressing these people, and they didn't all know each other. And she didn't disclose to this other client, this client's having the same experience. They were all in the concentration camps. When they went back and had past life therapies, they were in the gas chambers or having experiments on them with chemicals. Crazy. So these people were all being reincarnated, like 10, 20 years later. And then now they were in the 90s coming to see her for these issues. And it's just amazing how these different clients came at the same time to her. So yes, you can definitely find that out. And that's what I was talking about when you use hypnotherapy therapeutically. You come with an issue. It could be, like you said, it could be just a body pain or weird rash. And you go, well, doctors can't find anything out about this. You can follow that feeling back. The therapist knows how to take you back with that and find out where it initiated. And you may be surprised what you find out. But here's the deal. The whole idea of using it, if you're using it therapeutically, is to relieve yourself of whatever that issue is. So if it's depression or if it's grief or it's a pain in your body, that's what it's used for. And I've seen it work many, many times. It's amazing. I'm always amazed.
It's fascinating to me. I really want to do it. I just feel like I need to find somebody I'm comfortable with and like let myself go and do it. And that's the hard part right there, is like, and like you said too, not just thinking I'm just making this up as I go, like just letting it be that I'm in a different realm.
Yeah. And did your husband, was he able to let go when he was in it? He obviously did. He has started writing with the different people.
Yeah, he has no memory of it either.
So he's one of the few
Like when
people
he came
that
out,
go ahead.
when he came out of it, he didn't have a memory. She told him what happened and she showed him the letter that he wrote. And like I don't think I'll have to ask him again, but I don't think he has like a full memory of like what all he said and everything like that. But it's on the cassette tape.
He's what you would call somnambulistic. He's the one that can go under really deeply. And there's a few people in the population that can do this. And I had one out of all the clients I saw, and I saw quite a few, I had one that would go fully under, where he didn't recall anything when he came out. It was amazing. But you could have just as good as sessions if you aren't somnambulistic. Let's say you could go under slightly. You could still have a very good, successful session. So it's not so much if you can go all the way out or you think you're making it up. It's the results you get. And if you can let yourself, that's why you have to find somebody, like you said, Bridget, you're being smart about this. Somebody you feel like is trustworthy, that you feel like you can let yourself go
Yes.
in case you do go further down, deeper than you might have expected. Or you just think, kind of making this up, it sounds so silly. If you stay with the story, it's amazing what can happen for you and what you can determine and learn.
Yeah, I want to do it and I'm excited about it. So I'll just have to figure out who that person is. Okay. I love the term Ouijaologist. Ouijaologist?
Ouijaologist, you got it. Yep.
Ouijaologist. I love it. Okay, we talked a little bit about this, that you've been doing this since 1973, which I cannot believe. You told me you got your first board from Santa Claus for Christmas, which is crazy. I love it. If your parents were like worried about you seeing ghosts and things like that, but they weren't worried about the Ouija board?
I know. Isn't that crazy? It sounds like a weird dynamic here. So they didn't believe in the Ouija board. They both said, "Oh, we had when we were little, and you push it around, wink, wink. Sure, it works." I go, "Oh gosh, no, it works. It works." I'd use it with my friends down the street. We spoke to her dead sister, and you know what? She's growing up on the other side. She died right after birth, but she was now 10 on the other dimension, in the afterlife. And my parents were like, la la. Now the funny thing is, they knew I was experiencing all kinds of beings, and when I would see things come in my room at night, that's usually when we're least inhibited.
Mhm.
The different energies can have a better chance to reach you, and I'm sure you know that too. So I had all kinds of different spirits, beings coming, and they thought, she's just crazy. They didn't go to the extreme and take me to a doctor for meds. They just said, "You got to stop this." And they said, "You're just a creative person." Well, I am a creative person, but this stuff was real. I think a lot of people that are creative are just channeling the other dimensions. That's why they're so creative, can write songs or paint pictures and write books or whatever. So I was telling them I was seeing all these things, and they just didn't believe me, and they just thought the Ouija board was just a game. However, this is the weirdest thing about it. Okay. So I get the Ouija board from Santa Claus, and I'm telling my parents throughout the years, in the 80s up to the 90s, and my first book comes out in 2012 about this stuff. My mom said, "Well, I thought you were just kidding." I said, "You think I'm kidding?" And I've been using this tool at the point, it was like 30 years, 38, 39 years. She goes, "I thought you were making this up." I said, "You think I would go on international radio, on TV shows, and talk about this and make this stuff up?" She goes, "No, you wouldn't." I go, so come on." She's like, "Well, as a matter of fact, my mother was a spiritualist, and she used to hold seances." Her mother's mother, my great grandmother.
Yeah.
She was married to
Yes.
an undertaker, and she used to hold seances. I go, "You're telling me now?" And I've been seeing these things. I've been telling you. She goes, "Well, I just didn't make the connection." She goes, "But now I do." I go, "Thank you."
Oh my gosh.
The belief
Why do you
system,
think
it's in my family. My family believes in this. My dad is an engineer and military man. He's open to it. He now believes it. My mom, she's always been open when she was a lot younger to these things. That's why I got the Ouija board. But she just didn't want to, I guess, encourage me to keep talking about it because it was a little scary to her. And now it's not. She would say, "Oh, give me a message from my guides," or "How's so and so doing?" I'm like, "Okay, let me check in." You know, it's like it's acceptable. And my family was never weird about it, although we were practicing Catholics, and I would go to CCD and I do the confirmation. I was baptized, and all these things we did for many years. They never saw how that it was the antithesis of that. They never saw it as something wrong. They saw it as something she just enjoyed doing, and they saw it as a game, not realizing it was very real until I was a lot older.
Well, that was my next question for you. Why do you think it is kind of marketed and sold as a toy?
Well, that's because when it was first patent and trademark, it was patent and trademark under novelty items or toys or games, because that's who sold these. That's stationary companies sold like the planchettes, the automatic writers. But if you wanted to go into anything that was like kind of couldn't explain it, it became a novelty item. It was only sold at toy stores. And all the years since it came out in 1991, when it was patent and trademark was received, 1891, all the way up through all the years, it has always been under toys and games. That's where it's always been positioned. And I think it was smart for the different companies that held the rights to it, like Parker Brothers and Hasbro now, because it keeps it mysterious. It keeps it like novelty. It keeps it where you're not going, oh, this is just, you can only use it if you're a practitioner of the arts or something, or you're a psychic medium. It keeps it open for everybody. And that's a great way for them to get it out there, mass population. I mean, everybody's had one. Most people have had them, and they're addicts through, years to go by. And most of them had them as a child or knew somebody who had them, and we used them. They were smart to keep it under toys.
So when I first got mine when I was 12, and then I had my bad experience seeing what I thought was my great grandfather, but I don't think it was. And then my mom was like mad about using the Ouija board, got rid of it, no more Ouija board. And then I was sort of scared of the Ouija board too for the longest time. And then one day I was doing, my podcast, and I was doing an investigation at Daydreams and Nightmares, and Dana, who's the owner there, she had one sitting out, and I said, "Ooh, do you use the Ouija board?" And she was like, "Oh, not really. It's more just out for just looks right now." She's like, "But I'm not opposed to it. Why are you one of those people that are scared of it?" And I said, "Well, kinda. Like my first experience was bad from it." And she goes, well, don't you use," and she started naming off every other tool that I use, and they're like spirit boxes or dowsing rods or, everything. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's like, "So what's the difference?
Good
Either
point.
way, you're channeling the other side and you're talking to it." And I was like, and ever since then, I was like, I'm not scared of the Ouija board anymore. And I went and bought a new one. And now my only problem with it is that it's so slow compared to like a spirit box or a voice recorder or other ways of communicating. So my questions for you regarding this story are, should we be afraid of the Ouija board? And then, well, we'll start with that one because I think that's a big one.
Okay, so when people ask me that question, I would say, should you be afraid of the Ouija board? Because they ask me, I'm going to say no. But everybody's going to have their own opinion about it. And a lot of times our opinions are based upon what we've been told, what we read, Ouija-stitions, we call them, which are superstitions, mythology, all this stuff, because we heard somebody's sisters, brothers, dogs, uncles, aunt, cat had a bad experience with the board. And I'm just being funny right now. But people do have bad experience, they tell me. But here's the thing. They immediately assume it's because they use the Ouija board. Why couldn't it be because they themselves channel that energy? See, the board is nothing more than theatrics. It's nothing more than my permission slip to go into the realms of consciousness and bring back messages. Whether I'm doing psychic readings, you can call it that, intuitive readings, or I'm channeling from the guides, or we're using the Ouija board, or a pendulum, or spirit box. I'm bringing through energy through my intention and my focus. And we should only fear our own fears. If we're fearful of them and believe that can happen, then yes, guess what? You're going to draw that to you. But if you believe and you intend with your sessions that you're going, I mean, guys, I've been using it for such a long time. People go, wow, that's not true. I've been using it 53 years. So there's some credibility here. I've had nothing but great experiences. And it's because of my intentions and how I approached it. I was never afraid of it. Nobody told me it was bad. Until I got older, and I was like, well, that's weird because my experience has been nothing but great. So I don't listen to people's experiences. So I just ask myself, what do I feel about it? How do I feel about the board? And what do I think about it? Is it a tool that can conjure up evil and demons? For me, no. It's a tool for me that I use to conjure up angels and goodness, or consciousness of pets and animals, or the deceased, or spirit guides, ethereal beings. And or even my higher self. It's been nothing but a tool to use to gain great wisdom and insight. So it's just the approach. So people always go, well, you can't bring a Ouija board on a paranormal conference, or you can't do it on an investigation. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. In fact, the reality is, I consider myself a walking Ouija board. It's really about looking at yourself and what you believe about this tool. If you believe you can get great things with it, and I'm telling you, I don't use it just for the dead. The dead is so passe nowadays for me. I use it for so many other reasons. I channel my books through it. I mean, I use it for even channeling poetry or getting insight and ideas for business. I use it to talk to my higher self, to spirit guides. So it's really going back and asking yourself, could this be used and reframed as a tool to gain insight and wisdom? And if you can get to that point with it, then there's no reason to have any fears about it. And then I would say the person, so are you still afraid? But if somebody's afraid, I'm not going to argue for anybody's fears or what their beliefs are, because it's really your beliefs that's going to feed everything when you use any of these tools, but especially a Ouija board, because it's demonstrative. It's just theatrics to it. It moves around on its own, and your hands are feeling the pull, and it becomes this great mysterious object. And so it gets a little mysterious and like almost creepy at times, or scary, or how does that work? But it really piques curiosity. And if people can learn to see it that way as a tool for exploration, I think their fears will go away. And realize if it's just that they're afraid of talking to something that's dead, maybe if they talk to their higher self who's very much alive, they're going to realize, wow, I'm just channeling my inner wisdom. How awesome is that?
Well, that was kind of my next question because, if you like I take classes at the Rhine and stuff, and if you talk to them, they would say it's your ideomotor skills that are moving that. It's not somebody from the other side or anything like that that's moving it. You are moving it. But in a way, does that even matter? Because if I'm getting this knowledge, let's say, or from even just within myself, like a higher version of myself, or from like my spirit guides or something like that, and I am moving it based on where they're like maybe they are influencing though what I'm moving. So I'm just curious, does it make a difference if it's our fine motor skills that are moving it or something else?
To me, it makes no difference. I'm a purist, though. I'd like to think on the spiritualist terms and using a tool like this where it's actually another energy influencing it. And I could feel the planchette pull. It's not a pushing; it pulls my fingers. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's a pulling sensation. I believe it's a combination of my energy with other beings. But yeah, the ideomotor is a great classical explanation by scientists. They're going to say it's based upon the small muscle movements that your brain controls on a subconscious level, and you don't know it's happening. And I'm with you, Bridget. Who cares? If you're getting such great inspiration and messages, our subconscious and our unconscious realms is full of so much great information. It could come back from our ancestors. It could be back from our past lives. That's within us. We hold all this within ourselves. So if I can allow my muscle movements and my ideomotor effect to make it come out, I'm all for it. I don't disagree. I don't discard it either. But I also say I've experienced and I've seen things that are not of this world and have touched me, have communicated with me. I've heard them, I've seen them, I've smelled them, olfactory and all that stuff. And I felt them with moving the planchette. So I'm going to say it could be a little bit of everything. And I also say it's discernment when you're using this tool. It gets to a level of you might start out using this and it might be more ideomotor effect, or it might be more you just thinking you're pushing it when it's, your subconscious is controlling it. You're going to find you're going to know the difference as you start using this tool more and more. You're going to go, oh no, that's the spirit guides. Because when each different being that I talk to, and I talk about a lot of them in this book, The Spirits of Ouija, the different beings I've spoken to over the years. But what I find is you start realizing they have spirit signatures, which basically means the frequency feels differently when I channel them. And in this case, with the Ouija board, I feel it through my fingers in the planchette. When I'm channeling them directly, I feel it through where they come through, and I feel them behind my body. And I can feel like this side or up here, and how they sound and how they feel. That's their spirit signature. That's their frequency. And that's a real thing I can feel. And then I can know, oh God, I know who this is. That's Mary Angel.
Aw,
That's the guy.
yeah.
I know exactly who it is after all these years.
Well, I'm curious now with technology and everything. So, like, one of the reasons I don't use the Ouija board very often and I don't take it with me on investigations or anything like that, it's a very slow method of trying to
Right.
communicate with somebody. Like, just trying to get a name, it will take, if it's not a long name, Elizabeth or something like that, like we're going to be here for a while. With the newer technology that's out, do you still find yourself that the Ouija board is the best for you, or have you tried other things? Like, what is your thought on all of that?
Well, this is what I call it. Ouija board is old school technology. It's manual. It's not doing the electronic stuff. So I enjoy it. I teach it when I'm at events and conferences. We saw each other at Michigan Paracon that year. I was teaching how to use it. For me, it works really fast. If you've seen my videos, it moves. It's like this fast for me, and I'm writing down. Still, that's slower. That's slower than what your electronic devices will do. It's a ability I developed over the years, and it allows me to be able to disconnect from more of my rational mind to think what it's going to say next and just go so fast that messages come through quickly now. But having said that, when I do investigations, when I'm teaching, I'll bring the board out. Now I use myself as the walk-in Ouija board. I'm basically the channeler. And even with the Ouija board, I am the channel. I am the channel. The board is doing nothing. It's all me. Just getting my permission slip to allow it to come out, or my theatrics, how I show it happening. But it's really still myself. So in investigations, I like to get my baseline, go into an event, and then start receiving messages. What do I feel? What am I hearing? What am I tasting? And start throwing out those ideas, and then writing them down, and the story starts unfolding. I remember I was in Tombstone a couple of years ago with another gifted psychic friend of mine. We were running an investigation, and all of a sudden we started getting all these messages, and it wasn't the haunted area we were in. It was somebody in the room who needed to receive message from her mother. So even though we were there to do something else, to tap into the spirits that were in this building, what came out was a whole freaking psychic session. And between the two of us, we were tag teaming. We had all those messages coming through that it was spot on for her. We're like, well, we didn't know that was going to happen. And that's how spirit works. That's the beauty of this work. But you really got to do this. I find that you really got to fine tune your own abilities to become a channel. So what's great is on investigations to use the electronic equipment, fabulous, because you don't have to rely on yourself so much. Although I find that because I'm in my state that I'm in consciously and how I get myself into a meditative state, that affects how I use these tools too. So those two can play off each other. But if you're new at investigation and you want to do a K2 meter, you want to do these different devices. I have some on my phone I use in the background to see what's coming through because it comes through quickly, like you said. That's great. But if you really want good at becoming more empathic and intuitive, Ouija board is great for that. I developed so many of my senses, my clairsenses through using this tool, because now I can do the same work on the board, off the board, and get the messages that much faster. But, all these tools kind of can go together too. You can use them all together in tandem, which I do.
Okay, so let's say somebody's listening to us right now and they're like, okay, well, I was kind of afraid of the Ouija board, but now Karen's making me feel more comfortable with it. But I've heard crazy things like what you're not supposed to play it by yourself. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we call those the Ouija-sticians. There's Gene Orlando. He was a member. He retired of the Talking Board Historical Society, one of the founding members, who talks all about the Ouija-sticians. And then Rex Schreck, who is the vice president, he drew up a shirt that's called the board rules. And so we have rules such as don't use it in the graveyard, don't use it alone, don't ask when you're going to die, all these things. And I'm here to tell you, I've asked every single one of those questions, and I have done it in the graveyard multiple times. Still, nothing bad has happened to me. All my colleagues at the Talking Board Historical Society, same thing. Again, it's what your belief is, what your intention is. And people are going to say, well, that's not true. Something bad can happen. I'm here to tell you again, after 5 decades of using this tool, nothing bad has happened because I used it in a vacuum. I never listened to other people and what their beliefs were about it. And it was easier in the 70s and 80s and 90s. We didn't have the internet to do all that. So having a good 25, 30 years before the internet comes out and all these people are telling you all this weird stuff and the movies were coming out, I was like, no, this is just normal. I'm just channeling like my great grandmother did. I just happen to use a tool. It just felt so normal. So that right there in itself blocks all that other negativity. So I'm not here to say, go use the board. I'm here to say, if you're excited about this tool and you want to learn to use it with discernment. Use it with intention. Use it as exploration. Use it to push the boundaries of consciousness. Talk to your higher self first. And I always tell people reach out to me and say, well, I get gibberish, or I check out the information I get and it's not accurate. I go, it's not going to be accurate. Why is that? It's because you haven't perfected your own ability to channel. Remember, the board's not doing it. you're doing it. And we don't really understand how to connect with other energies until we practice that. It's like taking up a new sport, golf, which is something I used to do. And I'd had thousands of dollars of lessons and I'm not going to say I'm a great golfer, but I put a lot of hours behind it and I got decent, but it took many hours. So I tell people there's no different when using this tool. It's going to take many miles with your fingers on the planchette to get to know how to channel in this format. And so it's not that the tool's broken, it's that maybe you're broken. You're not learning how to use it correct. I remember once I was on a show, it was a Gaia show, and they were asking me, George Norris, beyond belief. He said, Karen, what's the most important part of using this device? Is it the board? Is it the planchette? I said, George, it's neither. It's me. I'm the common denominator here. I'm the one using the device, the planchette and the board. It's me. I'm the operator of this tool. I'm the one learning to channel this way. So if we think about it that way, the tool becomes more, the Ouija board becomes more just that, a tool you can learn to use and learn to use it with presence, learn to use it with intention again. The intention is probably the biggest word I can put out there when you use this tool is intention.
What about, did you hear my spirits talking to me right now?
I didn't hear that, but listen, we hear rapping. We're going to say it's the Fox sisters, maybe.
Yes. No, I hear lots of rapping. Okay. One other question with the Ouija board. What about people say you really have to know how to put it away, like to finish with it, close out properly. Thoughts on that? Do you ever get interrupted with a phone call and be like, oh, I didn't close out. They're going to get me now? Like,
Right. So that's one of the Ouija traditions that you always have to close the board and you have to close it a certain way. You have to go to the corners and figure eights or whatever. You'll see some of my videos where my partner and I forgot to close it out because I was doing a show where I was giving people readings through the board and we just didn't close it. And then what I used to do, I always make sure I close it only because to me, it's giving respect to the energies I'm communicating with. It's like I would just go click. We just say goodbye to you before we left, right? We're both going to say goodbye. And we say goodbye to the audience. We're not going to go click just out of here. That's just kind of rude. So I think it's decorum. And decorum is an energy that spirits like, people like, even your partner working at the board like. We like to have an opening, something happening in the middle, and an ending. And it just becomes a nice way, a nice ritual to treat this tool. So do I do it for any metaphysical reason, spiritual reason? No. But I will say this, when I was a therapist, and this is what really taught me how important it is to have create a safe space in which to work. I used to call it Jungian word, a limbic chamber, a place in which to do your psychotherapy. It's important to have an opening. The client comes in and we have our small talk. We talk about what we're going to work on. You got all your work in between the session, the hour session. And then you have your ending, which is, okay, here's your homework. This is what we did. Here's your summary. How are you feeling? Ground yourself. Bye-bye. So it's that thing. It's making that nice containment. And so when you use this tool, I teach people, and I talk about it in my books, to have that opening, to have that session, and have a closing, to make it complete for yourself, to make it a place to end. So then you go back from this spiritual, because when you do this work, you start getting kind of high. It's a spiritual high, coming back to grounded to go back into your life. So I think it's a nice transition to come into it and go out of it. And therefore I say, yes, find your ritual to this opening, middle, and a closing.
I was just going to say that word ritual. It makes it into a ritual when you have an arc that this is how I open it. This is what I'm going to do when I'm in there. And then this is how I'm going to close it out. And then it becomes more of a thing that you're doing rather than just, I'm going to ask this quick question or, use it as a game, more like. There was something I was going to ask you about consciousness versus personality who or what is actually communicating, because you are talking about all kinds of different beings. You're talking about our past, like our deceased relatives, even pets. You've talked about our higher self. Well, in fact, can you describe to us what our higher self is?
Yeah, that's a great place to talk about that. We'll get into the personality versus the consciousness. Personality is more ego based. It's like what we know about reality, what we've been told about reality. As you were told, oh, you must be crazy if you're seeing spirits, and I was told the same thing too. Here's some meds, take that, and maybe you'll get better. They're trying to make us into this. That's more of a personality. Where consciousness is so expanded. It's being able to tap into the consciousness, the matrix of humanity. So the higher self is definitely a Jungian clinical term, but you could call it your greater self, your inner self, your wise self. But I like to use the word higher self because it represents to me that part of me that's even bigger. It's not just stuck in my corporeal existence. It exceeds and expands beyond my aura. It's that part of me that's my soul. I even almost use those exchangeably, soul, higher self, because it is that part of me that connects me back to source, to spirit, to the matrix of consciousness. That is the place where we all connect. So if I can reach my higher self and I can learn to make that contact, which I did that for 4 years from 89 to 93, talk about it in my book, The Spirits of Ouija. I talk about all the experiments we did with that with two of my friends. We got some incredible insight into our personal lives from ourselves. Now, there's nothing spooky about that. It's just like going into a hypnosis and self-hypnosis and asking yourself questions and trying to extract good information. We thought, how fun is that? Well, what happened was this. When I made that connection to my higher self, which I could go in an instant, tap into that, it opened me up to other consciousness. It wasn't like I knew that would happen. I just thought, let's try this. All of a sudden, we got to a certain level after about 3-4 years where other beings started coming through. And the Ouija board's not just for the dead, like I said. I started getting angels, started getting ethereal beings who've never been born in a body, higher beings. That's when I met the guides. That's when I met different consciousness of animals, where I realized I can also communicate with animals that are very much alive, not just dead. So consciousness, again, it's tapping into your higher self to get to that level where everything is connected. It's like a matrix where all living beings are connected to that, regardless of what dimension you're in. But all living beings are in that space. And if you can learn to make that tap into your own higher self consciousness, that becomes the gateway or the doorway into other levels of consciousness. And I try to teach it that way so people can learn how, if they want to open up their empathic receptors, their intuition. Make the connection with yourself first, on the board or off the board. I teach both ways. Then you can more easily and readily tap into other levels of consciousness. So you go beyond the personality, just that's all I can do. My ego was just about, you question everything, to opening up to allowing more of higher energies to come through. But it's like making that connection. And it happened just automatically. I didn't know it was going to happen. It happened just step after step. And next thing I knew, I was down this odyssey of talking to and tapping into all kinds of consciousness. And that's what I do today. I'm still doing it.
And how do we reach our higher selves, and how do we know when we're there?
That's a great, great question, because it does take some time. So this is where we'll go back to that conversation about hypnosis. Self-hypnosis or meditation, meaning getting into a very relaxed state and telling yourself you're going to sit here and you got to understand you're not going to black out. You might fall asleep, but if you do, wake yourself back up. But you're asking to go into a realm where you're relaxed and to receive guidance and wisdom from yourself. I point to my head, although consciousness in your higher self is not your head. But a lot of times we hear it in our head. We'll hear thoughts or words, and we might feel it in our body too. And to learn to start writing those feelings, those messages down. It might be just a word like talk. All right, write that down. Red. Growth. And then you might start getting senses. And then this is the thing. It's like with hypnosis, you have to go, I feel like I'm making these stories up to go, all right, I'm going to go with it. Maybe I'm making them up. But then all of a sudden you start getting some real information, some stuff that really helps you in your life. Who cares where it's coming from? But that's how you start tapping into your higher self. And then you get to a point where my guides, this book, here it is, The Spirit of Alchemy. I talk about all about how to do that. That's what this book is all about, really how to do this off the board, to tap into your higher self, which I call source wisdom, because you're tapped into that too. But I take you through that because the idea is if you can tap into this place, and this is what the guides call it, it's like imagine an outlet that's outside of your body, and you're taking your cord, you can, whatever, your electrical cord, and you plug it into that. They said it's that simple. You just got to plug in. They said how you do it, though, is through being patient with yourself. And some of the techniques I talk about in there. But the biggest one is really sitting there and learning to be receptive and receiving and allowing those words or thoughts or feelings to come through and writing them down and saying, okay, I did that today for 10 minutes. I'll do it tomorrow for 12 minutes. The same thing. It's getting into a state where you allow yourself to receive, being receptive. And once you can do that, you're going to realize you're going to go, wow, now I'm starting to get these same connections in my dreams. Gosh, now I'm getting them when I'm driving my car. Well, now I'm getting them when I'm just floating around in my pool because I'm relaxed. It's getting in that relaxed state. You'll notice things come to you. Before I do a session with people, I often get messages coming to me before a session starts, before I'm even getting into that meditative state, because my body knows I've set aside that time to work with the client, that all of a sudden I'm there and it's coming before because my body knows, and I have to trust my body. And that's really a big thing about this, is learning to trust when you're receiving something and not get into the personality and question at the ego and go, well, that doesn't make sense. I can't tell that person that. My guide said, well, who are you to judge what that person can handle or can't handle? What you're getting, you give, because that's a gift. And so it's that, receiving and allowing that, and allowing yourself to receive it and writing it down.
And then how do we know, and I mean, maybe it's just practice, but how do we differentiate, like if we're getting messages from our higher self or from our spirit guides or from like non-physical intelligence somehow, or an animal or a tree, or like, how do we know where the message is coming from, or does it matter?
Well, okay. So in the beginning, when you're first learning this, I don't think it matters so much as long as it's positive. As long as it is mind expanding, it's positive energy, you feel good getting it, you're not going to know that. Again, it's all about this frequency. My higher self has a very different frequency than my spirit guides. I learned
Okay.
about this on the Ouija board because when I would bring in my higher self, it came through very different than Mary Angel. My angel comes through. She comes through very staccato. My higher self is a little more poetic, a little more flowy. The guides are more direct to the point. And even when I do sessions on YouTube, you can watch it, you'll see when different beings come through, and I'll explain why, because it changes. And I learned to feel that. This is what I meant by my clairsense got even stronger using this tool, because I learned to understand and feel through the movement of the planchette what this feels like. Now it's translated now in my body how I feel it when I channel directly. So I know when my higher self wants to speak. I know when the guys want to speak. I know when Mary Angel comes through. I know when I tap into the animals. And what I found fascinating, you just said, Bridget, you said trees. Now I'm going to ask you, why did you bring that up?
Oh, I just feel like it's all connected in some way. I think that you can talk to the trees. I think you can talk to the grass. I mean, that might sound crazy, but I feel like it's on a different level. It's all connected and it's all alive.
100%. I talk to trees a lot, and I can talk to them on the Ouija board or directly. It's the the native cultures, the original cultures always did this. They called them the standing tall ones. They are the ones who blow in the wind, or the standing still were the rocks, Gaia Earth. I mean, once you tap into the higher self and get into this whole level of consciousness, it is a flow that everything is tied into, all living beings. The earth is very much alive. The cosmos is very much alive. It ties into that. You're right. You just shift your frequency. It's like turning the dial on a radio, AM, FM, to get that right frequency to get you a new station. I do that through my intentions. I do that through my feelings. And again, it's my intention and my beliefs that I can do it, to shift that dial to tap into the tree beings, or a vegetable kingdom, or the mineral kingdom. Or I did a series on channeling different animals, the dolphin, the buffalo, the snakes, whatever, reptiles. It's tapping into that. Now, the hard part is it's not easy to do in the very beginning until you can learn to differentiate the different feelings and to get that level of connectivity. Most people, when they start out with this tool, the Ouija board, will talk to dead people, which is nothing wrong with that. You can do that. That's a great way to start. It's a great place to start because you believe there are people that die. We know that for a fact. We also know that they were like us, and many people believe in an afterlife. That right there is 85, 90% of it. The rest of it is learning to be patient and learning this tool, you to work with this tool. You become a great operator. But once you do that, then you start realizing, I don't need this tool. I can just do it directly. I'm getting the same messages. And then you go, wait a second. I could talk to all kinds of living beings. I mean, I wrote this book. This is my most recent book. It came out in 23. When Cats Had Wings. I channeled my cat, Jack. My cat, Jack, is very much dead now, but he started when he was alive. He said, I want to be an author like you. And he finished it in the afterlife. and he's very proud of it. So he's been gone for, gosh, since 2019 now. He's been gone 7 years. But this is a lovely book, and it's about the love between humanity and the feline species. You could
Aw.
ditto for any kind of species, but it's a lovely story, children's/adult book. But I get into that in that book. I channel Jack in his story and how he said, I wanted to write about how people. He was in a very cruel environment when I got him, and he said, you always saw me as your angel. You always saw me as something whole, although I know I was fractured and broken and I was afraid all the time, but you saw me as something whole. And he said that made me want to write this book about how if you just see us as angels, we'll be there for you. And he says, we rescue you. I know you thought you rescued me, but I really rescued you. And so it's beautiful stuff like this the animals want to tell us. But yes, you can talk to your animal, your pets. It's like doing pet communication. Psychics can do that. Well, you too can too when you learn to channel this way.
I would love to be. I've got one
I saw
sleeping
one
right
back
here.
Oh, cute. I got one back here. You can't see it. It's in bed back here, but it's beneath me, so you can't really see her.
Okay, so I was curious, when we are trying to unlock our better selves, I want to understand what that means. Does that mean like just being like a better person in general, or does it mean like actually like tapping into how I could be more successful or like reaching my goals and things like that, or it like my full potential, or is it both of those things, or does it have nothing to do with career and success and finance or love or children or those things that you're looking for?
It's a little bit of all the above, but here's the thing: we're still humans in humanity. We're physically. I mean, we're spiritual beings, of course, having a human experience, but we are here to be humans first. So it doesn't mean life's not going to happen to you. Doesn't mean crap's not going to happen. Doesn't mean you're not going to have the ups and downs in life. But what it means is you may have a better way of viewing it now, of processing it and approaching life when you get this inner guidance. Doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily easy. I want to be real clear about this, but it can give you, I call it my superpowers. Because when I understand how to approach something that's negative in my life and approach it from a different standpoint, maybe see the bigger picture, because my spirit guides, my higher self are telling me that's going to help me overall in my success, whether it's dealing with a situation that's not so positive or deal with a situation to get a new client. I mean, I have a company that does telecommunications based in California, and I use these techniques all the time before I go into a boardroom or before I talk to a client. So it has actually empowered me in many regards. So it can be successful or money, and people go, well, it's so good, get the lottery numbers. Well, guess what I did once? Not on the Ouija board, in a dream. I got all the numbers, but I couldn't remember the last one. I won some money. It wasn't a whole lot. It was when the lottery's in its infancy in the state of Texas. It wasn't a statewide or interstate lottery back then. It was late 80s, early 90s. But I did win. I got them all in a dream. So you have these abilities within us. Why not pull them out? If your greater self has these abilities to maybe be a better artist, to write books, to apply it to your gardening system, or to just speak more eloquently, you can tap into these parts of yourself and use them. It's remarkable. Again, you're still going to be a human. We're still going to have our ups and downs, but it just allows life to be that much more sweeter. Why not use the resources? Science tells us we only use such a small portion of our brain, like 8 or 9% of it. And I'm going to say brain, when I talk about the mind, it's not the brain. Or when I talk about the higher self, it's not the brain. But there's things we haven't unlocked yet in our brain because I think we're not computing. We're not using our computer correctly. Tapping into our higher self, I believe, is starting to unlock some of these abilities. The native cultures, I'll go back to them, understood how to communicate with the animals, how to communicate with the seasons or the cycles or the stars, the planets. They understood that in their life. And we've lost that. Technology, changed, shifted it for us. Doesn't mean we can't have the best of both worlds. And so I say if you can use old school stuff like the Ouija board to learn to channel, or yourself as a walking Ouija, along with the new technology, you're that much better off. But to tap into your higher self, I mean, that's something you don't do gadgets with. You do that on your own with yourself.
Yes. You have several of the clairs. How many clairs are there?
Gosh, I think there's 7 or 8. Let me see. There's Let's go. There's the clear audio, clear visual, clear sentience, clear olfactory, clear the one that's tasting, clear. Yeah. Gosh, I can't remember them all. There's quite a few of them, you guys. There's even more. You could break them down, but basically you got the sensing, the touching, the tasting, the smelling, the hearing, the feeling, and you get to all these different levels. I've always been visual. I'm auditory, and I'm also sensing, like feeling. And once in a while, I taste. I've smelled before, but I would say my three biggest are the seeing, the hearing, the feeling. How about you?
For me, well, I feel like I'm not really tapped into any of my clairs that much, but if I were to pick one, I think it's just the knowing. Like all of a sudden, I'll just know something. Or one time, not that long ago, I saw like a whole image or movie like play out in my head, and I just knew this whole situation that I couldn't possibly have known about somebody else's personal life, and I knew details and I knew conversation, and I could even feel how both parties in the situation felt about each other and the situation.
So
Like
that's
I
the
knew the
point.
whole thing.
You did right there. It was visual. You felt the sentience, and you knew. That's three right there.
Mhm.
See how that's how they work. They kind of compact with each other.
Yeah.
When you were little, you were definitely seeing, and I was seeing more. That was my first thing I did was seeing. Then I started hearing. Then I started sensing, and then knowing came later. So yeah, we tend to do a little bit of each. We all have these abilities. It's just how do you get back to your superpowers? How do you get back to them? And that's what I like to teach about. That's what I like to talk about because I'm always challenging myself. I was disappointed when I put away my so-called playmate, my child imaginary friend. It wasn't imaginary at all. His name's Jackie, and he comes out of one of my books, and he's been around me, still around me. And when I would see the spirit guys and the guardians, I used to call these beings called the guardians. I thought that I was disappointed. I put them all away, and I realized they never really go away. I had to open myself back up now as an adult to allow them to come back in. And that's what I did, and I still
Yeah.
do it to this day, and I push it. I push these boundaries of consciousness, and which includes all these clairsenses, because I feel like it's opening me up to my superpowers. That is that is what it means to have superpowers, are these things right here. And I think all of us can do it. It's just, taking the time to learn and wanting to do it and having a desire.
Oh, one thing I wanted to say, what you were talking about earlier is how we only use like 8 or 9% of our brain and stuff. I do have some friends who are psychic mediums where people are doing some studies on them and like putting like
Mhm.
the head thing on and the brain, doing this brain scan while they're like channeling or talking to the other side, and they're actually using parts of their brain that we don't normally use.
Yeah, Daryl Anka, who Charles channels Bashar, he did a whole movie about this. And it talked. He did that. He did the brain mapping thing where they looked at it and it opened up different receptors in his brain. You could see it that it was more active than it would be in his normal life. So yeah, things are going on physiologically, neurologically. Things are going on in our body when we're doing this work. You can feel when I start channeling, I get this real endorphin rush. That's something very physical, and I can feel my just rushing through my body up and down. It's like opening up my chakras, and I get this high, a high that lasts for sometimes hours after a channel because it's pure love, and you feel that. So yeah, things are
Yeah.
happening in our body, and now here's the other one, art math. I think it's called they map heart math. That's what it's called, heart math, and they actually map the heart, what's going on in the heart, and what the heart registers before things happen, before stimulus is induced into their environment, that the heart's feeling it before their brain even feels it. So there's even belief that the heart has little receptors like a brain, and it interprets
Huh.
the environment before your brain does it, and the brain's catching up to it. There's so many groups out there studying this now that science is catching up to what we already knew and what our ancestors and indigenous people, the indigenous cultures knew. They were already doing this. So yeah, I love it that science is showing this because that's what we need now. And we jump so far into technology, which is great. I'm all for it. But let's don't let it lag or get too far ahead of this other part, this humanity part, this part of us that has his abilities already to bring into the same awareness. Yeah, there's a lot of neat experiments going on this level. So quantum physics is another one. They're doing a lot of experiments with that. The quantum entanglement of different neurons and protons. If you think of something, how something happens, it affects that over there. The power of prayer. I mean, there's so many cool things out there, you guys, that are going on.
Yes, there really are. Do you use I think you mentioned this already, but do you use, the board in paranormal investigations? You said
I
you do,
do. I
right, when you go in?
Yeah, I do. I do. I use it a lot, especially in England when I was over there a few times because they wanted me to teach how to use it and then to use it in the investigation. So it just depends what the investigation calls for. Other things they want me just to teach it and then let people, go off on their own and use it, or go on and off the board. So I do it all because I have gotten to a place where I don't need the board to do this work, and I'll do a lot of work off the board just to keep those skills up because you do have to practice. I always survey
Yeah.
practice, patience, and perseverance, or you're going to lose. It's going to atrophy. Your ability to channel could atrophy as well with the board. But yeah, I use that, and I use a lot of different tools. A lot of my friends have the electronic devices. I just have a few apps on my phone that I use, but I use myself mostly. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I know. I wanna go back to the clairs one more thing.
yes.
You can see, and I'm curious, if do you see your spirit guides, and what do they look like? Like, do they look like people, or do they look like something else?
Well, that's a great question because my spirit guides, I call the guides. I can't see them. They said, "You'll never see us. We are from source wisdom. We are pure light, a light that your apparatus, your eyes cannot even see." They said, we're just like a bright light. We don't have physical bodies. We're consciousness. That's hard to even understand. So I can't see them. The guardians, Mary Angel, I had a glimmer of her and I've drawn her because I saw her once real quickly and then I saw her in my mind and I drew a picture of her. The guardians, full on, but see them huge light, but I never could see the body forms, but I can see the height and they touched me, they physically touched me when I was little. I can see some of them I can't. Deceased people for me are easier to see, deceased animals as well, because they're closer to our level of vibration. These other beings are in other dimensions. It's like our eyes can't even see into that. We're like, let's talk about our cats. Our cats can hear sounds outside of our range of frequency of hearing, as well as see things that we can't see. So it really depends on your
Mhm.
apparatus. And the guy said, your apparatus can't even, your eye apparatus can't even see us. So no, I don't always see them. I feel them. And as I'm talking about them, I can feel them right here. They're saying, yeah, we are. Of course, we're here. And because I just allowed myself, my perception to shift, I always feel them back here. Not that they're standing here because there's not really a uh, they're not a human being. They've never been a human being. I can feel the energy here because that's where I receive it. And so they're like, oh, yeah, we're here. So no, I don't see them all. I don't see them.
'Cause when I go to bed at night, I try to ask for like, as I'm trying to, like, make myself go to sleep, I'll try to ask for a message from my spirit guides, like, "Are you
Oh,
just give me a sign that you're here with me," or, like, "Tell me something because I really wanna tap into this, but I'm, like, struggling with it and stuff." And I usually do not get a message, or at least not one that I've registered as a message, but I have woken up in the middle of the night, like, twice, and I hear a voice, and it's told me
mm,
something, and it's like a voice I hear not like in the room, it's a voice I hear in my head. It's almost
yep.
like anybody else would think I just made the voice up, but I know it's not coming from me somehow. Or maybe it is, but it feels like I'm getting message from something else. And it was something as dumb as stop using that lotion. And I remember arguing with it. I'm in a half sleep. Like I'm asleep, but I'm sort of waking up. And it says stop using that lotion. And I argued with it and said, it's not the lotion. And it said, stop using the lotion. And I was like, it woke me up because I heard the voice so clearly, and it wasn't mean, it was very like, "No, it's don't argue with me, it's stop using the lotion, it's the lotion." And I was like I got up, and I was like, "I just heard that," and I literally went in the bathroom and took a washcloth and, like, wiped the lotion off of me, and then I went back to bed, and I couldn't even tell you if it was a male voice or a female voice, it was just a voice, like an all accompanying voice, and I don't and it's like I've heard that voice twice now, and I think that that was my spirit guide, and I then I tried to vision, what do they look like? Are they just people? What are they? Who are they?
Hmm. Well, that's a lot that happened to you. That's incredible, and you even took its advice and took the lotion off. And so you've been asking for these messages, and it doesn't come every night, but when it does, it comes. And I got to tell you, as funny as you think that sounds, one time I was looking for this ring. I had this really, I almost wore it today. It's weird. I wish I wore it because I could show it to you. It was this ring one of my brothers gave to me, and he's like, because I really liked it. Had this Native American symbol. It was just a simple band, definitely a guy ring, but I just liked it, and he gave it to me. And I had it, it's back when I was in my 20s, and I misplaced it, and I couldn't find it. And that's not like me just to misplace my jewelry. That's not normal. I was like, "What? Where does this go?" And I was looking for it for weeks, and I called my brother and said, God, I can't find that ring. I'm so bummed." He goes, "Well, maybe it'll show up." I heard a voice back here. Remember we talked about that? It's actually on this side. You said you feel it. It was in my head, but it felt like it came from my neck, this part of my head down here. And it said, "Look behind the door." Now I looked behind this door. It was a door in my bedroom. I looked behind it 10, 12, 15, looked at it for weeks, okay? Said, "Look behind the door." There it was. Now, was that an apport? Did it disappear and it came back? They brought it to me, and things reappear because spirit's helping? I don't know. I looked there. It wasn't there before. Now, maybe a cat played a trick and bounced it around the room. Maybe that happened. I don't know. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. I don't know. But the voice is what I'm talking about. And again, what you said, it was androgynous. Was it male? Was it female? But it was all encompassing, like you said. And I asked the guides many years later, I said, "Hey, I'm curious about that voice." They go, "That's the universe speaking. You could call it the guides or spirit guides, but when you hear that voice, I go, "What is that?" They go, that's source. That's all that is. That you tapped into that. You allowed that. It doesn't happen all the time, you guys. But when it happens, that voice. And your story reminded me of that. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
Oh, I want it to help me find something that I've lost.
Try it.
I know, I need to try it. Well, let's just talk about paranormal investigating. I know, we're at time, but I just wanna ask you about some of the, your favorite places you've ever been on, like, an investigation.
Okay. Yeah, well, I really enjoyed going to Coombe Abbey. That's in the UK. I've been there for a few times to talk and speak, and I just love it because it's this old monastery. There's even a monk that's buried in there. He's still in his casket. I mean, it's just cool. Has a cool vibe, old vibe. You know how old England is. That's one of my favorite places. I did go up to Cielo Canyon, Orman's house up there. He's got some really incredible vortex energies going on. And I did an investigation there, which was really, really cool. And I like so many different places. I did the Queen Mary before. That was pretty cool too when I was in California. But I got to tell you, my favorite place to investigate is just to stay in my house. Get this, spirit's non-local. Once you believe that and get into that realm of, can I talk to spirits that are not here, but could be at some place in Connecticut or on the East Coast somewhere, can you tap into it? You can. You've got to allow yourself and believe that. So yeah, spirit's non-local. So when I communicate with all these different consciousness, it could be a consciousness, here we go, the lone wolf in Montana. And that's an animal. Or it could be the consciousness of somebody else's higher self who gave me permission to communicate with them. In fact, a lot of my readings, I go, "This is what I'm hearing your higher self wants to tell you," because they'll come through and I'll just hear it. And I just got to say it and not judge it and get my personality out and allow the consciousness to flow. So that's the trick. But yeah, so I do like going to places and being in the vibe of it because you can feel things and it feels more real when you're there because it's tangible.
Mhm.
And when humans, we like to touch and see things. But I also like just being in my own space to bring in the energies too. And that's may not sound like a paranormal investigation, but it is if I'm exploring some aspect of somebody's life or somebody's relative who just died. That's like a paranormal investigation. What happened? What are they thinking? What's the
So
last
I
word? What do you want to tell them?
I could be at the Queen Mary, and I could ask you, like, to tap into the energy there, and you could be investigating from wherever you're at home, and
That's
is
the
that what you're
concept.
saying?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And it's a matter of
Wow.
just trusting to develop this is trusting yourself what you receive. Because it's like when I do readings for people. The readings I do now, I don't see the person. I don't hear their voice. They just sign up on my website and I give them a reading. And I don't even know these people.
Oh.
I don't know anything about them. And that's the best way because then I don't put any judgments. I'm not reading their body. I'm not reading their energy I'm with. I'm not reading the space we're in. I am doing nothing but answering their questions or tapping into spirit, what spirit source wants to tell them. That's the thing. Now, when you do investigations, you're not in the space. It's permission too. Is that space going to allow you to come into it? Yes and no. It's like when I do reading for somebody that's in another country, they've given me permission because they've already signed up for my reading. So obviously they gave me permission. So it's like that. How is that going to work? And on that side, are those energies going to want to talk to me? People will say, I want a message from my deceased grandmother. I go, well, that's not what I'm getting you need to hear today. What I'm hearing you need to hear is this. I'm still going to try to reach her. And I might get one or two words. I go, but no, you need to hear this. And they said, that's exactly what I really wanted to ask, but I didn't. I go, see, we have to trust spirit. So it's a little of each. Yes, I've done it. Yes, you can do it. And yes, you kind of have to be open to what wants to and needs to come through in that session.
Well, Karen, this has been so enlightening. Thank you so much for joining us today and telling us all your stories. Tell everyone listening how they can buy your book, sign up for a reading, follow you on social media, all of that good stuff.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure being here with you again, Bridget. I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us as we talked. You can find me at KarenADahlman.com, my website. You can find me at Karen A. Dahlman on YouTube. You can find me at Karen A. Dahlman on Instagram and Facebook. And if you go to Facebook or Instagram too, I have a link tree, and that will show you all the stuff about me. If you go to my website, you'll see where you can click a link for the readings. All my books are available on Amazon. I have some of the books are now Audibles. I think two of them are. All of them are in Kindle and paperback, and also this one is in all forms, but also it's in hard copy at Barnes and Noble. So anyway, pleasure to be here. Happy boarding to everybody. And if you choose to use this tool, have fun, enjoy it, have fun with it, and use your intentions first. And I think it'll be met with great results.
Absolutely. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Ghost Bunny podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on my spooky adventures, and I look forward to sharing a new ghost story with you each week. Please subscribe to my podcast so you're always the first to know when a new episode is out, and follow me on social media at Ghost Bunny Podcast on Instagram, and at Bridget Marquardt on Instagram, and at Ghost Bunny Podcast on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. Bye, guys.